Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen, and we went into before the fact that Mnuchin, Secretary to the Treasury in the United States, threatened to cut China off of the US dollar, which was a perfect storm for China because China's a big part of this giant cashless power shift. And again, this is happening. We are seeing things that are kind of reminiscent of what you'd expect when we see a whole system pushing towards the IMF's SDR, special drawing rights, which we'll go into soon. But first, this Wall Street Journal article says Treasury blocks Chinese bank from U.S. financial system over North Korea ties. And Bank of Dandong is accused of handling millions of dollars worth of transactions for sanctioned North Korean entities. And the story is basically as so. I don't need to go into this whole article for you guys, but it's really kind of starting to concern me that we are way too right about this situation, John. I feel like we're being way too vindicated because we've been talking about for a long time the centrally planned cashless society that the IMF is unrolling, and the IMF, of course, has been talking about moving to Beijing in the coming years in China, and with these sanctions on North Korea, it's like the perfect excuse to push towards this system. Regardless of what you think of Donald Trump, Mnuchin is historically a big banker and a globalist, and it's something that we should all be keeping a really good eye on because what they're basically trying to do is they're trying to raise interest rates at the Federal Reserve enough to be able to drop them out when the dollar comes crashing down. However, they'd have to go negative, so they're panicking. So they want to move into this new cashless, centrally planned system as soon as possible. And as I always go into, if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's a bank's. And if your money's always going through the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws, you never hold it in your hand. It's never your money, it's always the bank's. And you are essentially enslaved to the banking system and the government through the legal tender laws. So with that said, John, what do you think of this new revelation out of China?
Well, I think it's just another nail in the US dollar coffin. This is all to do with the United States. You got to remember that we take a look at the world reserve currencies, and what's interesting about them. They range throughout time. They always have a cycle on them. And as you can see on the chart that we have pulled up here, you can see from the 1400s, you had Portugal being a major power around the world, and then they, their currency were moving around the world everywhere. And then you had Spain. After that, of course, the Dutch came in, then the French, then the Brits, and then the United States. And now, as you can see at the top, you can see the United Nations with the IMF. That's what they're talking about for the future in this chart. So it's very interesting. This is actually from a good friend at
Marco Byrne
at Gold Course. A fantastic chart by Marco Byrne. Just really good exposing, what the plan is here, which is, of course, moving to this one world currency system.
We have to interview him again, by the way.
We definitely have to. So, Mark, if you watch, we'll be in touch with you soon, and you just do fantastic stuff. Always being out there. I always get your reports, and you got to follow him at goldcore.
Absolutely.
.com. But looking at this, of course, it always shows that the United States is on the verge of losing its world reserve currency. They have expanded mass amounts of debt everywhere in the world. Trillions upon trillions that are floating around other places than the United States, and that's why you haven't seen this massive inflation in the United States, because they were able to print money and then send it elsewhere. So it didn't circulate within the country, and you couldn't see the inflationary, pressure happening on the US dollar locally in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way we're seeing this all move towards this cashless system is mostly because, well, all fiat currencies eventually revert to their intrinsic value of zero. They always have, always will.
It's a flawed system.
They just print. Quantitative easing, the fractional reserve banking, just the massive amounts of manipulation always bring the dollar down. And we've seen countless fiat currencies crash throughout history. It's been almost 1,000 years since the first fiat currency in 1024 AD in none other than China.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It seemed to come full circle, like a 1,000-year circle. Like finally, China get the chance to screw everybody over as they did back in the day.
And there are so many countries around the world that are swapping out of the U.S. dollar right now. People are running scared, and rightly so.
Yeah, they're moving up. We've gone into detail in other videos where we talked about different swaps between countries where they do transactions in yuan instead of US dollars in oil, whatever it is, of commodities. So this is a big move. And of course, recently China is adopting into their gold exchange that they have in Hong Kong. That I think, I forgot what the gold exchange is called, but what they're doing is they're actually implementing oil trading there as well. So now people can actually trade with oil with China, give them oil, and then China could actually pay them gold directly within that exchange. So you're seeing that everybody's, flying out of the US dollar. It was very slow at the start. Mike Maloney has been fantastic talking about this, the trickle that happened with all these moves away from the nails and the coffin, US dollar coffin, he says. But now it's become more and more rapid. We see like almost every week, like 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 articles that almost every day now that you see articles of people moving away, or as Mnuchin and Trump here are trying to limit North Korea by taking them away from the United States financial system. But the problem is they still got the Chinese financial system, because that's
the amount of debt that China
bank.
has.
So they don't care. Like there's a massive, they could get around the US dollar. But I think it's a problem of the reign of supremacy almost, that the United States have the feeling that they're this massive great state. And you hear it from people even like Alex Jones and others talking about how Americans are the greatest. Well, the problem is the Americans have a central bank. So I like their constitution, of course.
I like their Declaration of Independence. It was founded on a good idea and then got taken over quickly, going back to, I think, 1792 under Alexander Hamilton, who pushed George Washington, who was in no way an economist, nor did he have the history books in front of him to understand, and pushed him into the first central banking system. And then we saw another one, 1812, after the War of 1812.
20 years, the first one, then 40 years. This one was lasted for 100 years.
Yeah, 1913, the Federal Reserve Act of 1912 actually signed, I believe, in December or something. No, January 1913.
December 23rd, I think it was right at
December
Christmas
23rd,
time, because that's when they pushed it. Right?
I'm thinking of January 20th, the day the president gets inaugurated. But anyway, it's been just rampant over time. Of course, the IRS was combined to that, and it's just been a way for the government and the central banking system to centralize everything, control everything, and shove us under the bus.
And it's not an attack on Trump or anybody. I believe Trump wants actually to save the country, but he has a problem. He has a failing system that he has. Like he's trying to fix, which you can't. It's I don't know how to really describe it. It's almost like a volcano, like a big volcano that's currently erupting, and it's going to erupt forever. But they're trying to put like a sponge or something on top of it to lock off so it doesn't blow.
Well, I think half the time also he doesn't know what he's talking about either. But I mean, in the end, he has no control over it. It doesn't matter. He has no say. It's always a global system. It's always the centralization, the central planners, the cartel of central bankers, and government and collectivism beget more government and collectivism. There's no way to get small government and manage to somehow create a whole bunch of change, because government, once in control, will always grow in size and scope and will always continue to get bigger, and it still uses the collective will against the individual. So in the long run, you have 51% killing the 49%, or enforcing or coercing the 49%.
Well, they used the system, like Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, all of them used the democratic system to get elected.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they implemented their strategy with a majority.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, Stalin kind of took it from Lenin after the October Revolution, but for the most part, you're absolutely right. Yeah. It's either by blood and revolution or willful ignorance and sheep, walking to the slaughter. And either way, it's still wrong, because people are enforced. Their will is being enforced by, some big grand collective, as G. Edward Griffin says, for the greater good of the greater number.
Yeah. Well, we should talk about, of course, this whole China, North Korea thing. Yeah. What you got to understand is both countries are communist. So, of course, they're going to work together. It's just a little puppet that, Xi Jinping has in North Korea there, his little minion, running around.
Well, absolutely. The North Koreans are totally propped up by China, and in a lot of ways they've been propped up by the Americans as well, going back to the Korean War. But without a doubt, I mean, this is a problem of, this mass global order, and it's China and Russia and these countries versus the Western countries. And either way, it's bad. It's bad news. And when it comes down to North Korea, look, we aren't defending North Korea. It's a terrible, terrible country. Oh, yeah. I feel for the people that live there. Now, looking at something that I've gone over before, revolution is coming to North Korea. This doesn't take an atom bomb. When you look at the army being fed grass a lot of the time because they have no money and there's starvation rampant. Look at the Soviet Union, John. I mean, going back to the Soviet Union, it wasn't protests that brought down the wall. It's the fact that the economy was completely decimated. Exactly. It was crumbling at the foundation, and it eventually brought them down because there's constant starvation. So if you look at North Korea, when the soldiers are forced to eat grass, when people that live in the country are forced into starvation,
starving to death, and
they're getting pissed off, and rightly so, and they're going to rise up.
Yeah, and there's there's hundreds upon hundreds of documented. Like now, there's a lot of small documentaries coming out about North Korea. People are getting exposed, and in those documentaries, there's so many people working, defectors on the outside, good people working on, giving them propaganda, cross propaganda to the crazy propaganda that Kim Jong-un is having, and telling them actually that, the world around them isn't what their great leader is telling them.
Absolutely. And it's just going to keep piling up. We'll continue to go into this, as we always say when it comes to fiat, the crash is coming. For the solutions, food, water, shelter, and then of course defense, so you're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. And then of course that which is decentralized, Bitcoin, assets, gold, silver, these are the things that will save us.
Yeah, what I'm worried about though with Trump is that he might, go forward and look at, he's got to, show some muscle against North Korea in order to dominate them. And that's terrifying. My worries, that could trigger world war here.
Yeah, because there's 150,000 Chinese troops at the North Korean border as of a few months ago. There's ships in the Sea of Japan. You have the same thing with the Japanese. Then Russia is at their northern border, according to many reports, and it's just going to create this massive conflict. It's going to involve Iran as well. Everything's going to start crumbling, and then we're going to have a global war. And that's exactly what the monetary system wants. So with that said, John, let's just close it off for now, and we'll continue to report on this subject as it no doubt unfolds, unfortunately, and we will continue to be vindicated again. So until next time, thanks for watching, everyone. This is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Thanks for watching, everyone. Check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized by the Anti-Defamation League on YouTube as they flag all of our content as hate speech. You can also find our Bitcoin address in the description in the comments as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. You can also find me at Josh Sigurdson at steemit.com. That's steemit.com, the future of social media, as the dinosaur social media digs its own grave. You get paid in cryptocurrency, Steem that is, on steemit.com via the upvote of your posts. So I hope to see you there. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.